LLC. So this is gonna kind of give a baseline of the curriculum what we're gonna talk about today. And so we're gonna go over legal, branding, finances, production, marketing, and sales, right? That sounds like a whole lot, but I promise you, like, this is gonna be very much so high level, big picture ideas. What's gonna make this very helpful, and I think, beneficial for you guys as well, is like to ask questions as we're going through this. So like, this is not a lecture series where I'm just spewing out a bunch of information. I need to make sure that this stuff is relevant for you guys and where you guys are at. So there'll be some things that we kind of skip down quick on, but yeah, feel free to stop. So first thing that we're gonna talk about is legal, right? So I heard somebody mention AK. You just mentioned that you just 2 years ago you became a legal company. 3. So a lot of things, we get this question all the time, like, all right, where do we go to, get an LLC or to trademark, and like, what is all that stuff, right? So high level, if you're just starting out as a brand, even if you have partners, like we started out and it was 2 of us and then it quickly became 3, right? We still operated as an LLC, right? We had an owner's agreement that we had a lawyer draw up for us, but Secretary of State.ga.gov, that's where you're able to go to get your licensing. You don't need to go through LegalZoom, even though that's something that, is offered a lot. You're gonna pay a lot of money to have somebody do something that you could really do yourself, right? And then it's probably gonna cost you maybe like $100, $125 to get your license. Now, after that, and we'll kind of talk about this some more, like when we start getting into like the branding portion, but trademarks, right? So people are always asking like, do I copyright something? Do I trademark it? What do we do with that? If I'm correct, which I think I am, copyright is going to be dealing with anything that's written, right? When you start talking about images, that's also then coupled with text, or if it's just text, but it's unique text, right? So for example, we have both the grad cap as well as the name honor roll trademarked, right? So doesn't mean that no one can use the word honor roll, right? But what it does mean is that no one can use it like this. And in this particular category, which for us is anything dealing with fashion, right? Anyone who wants to use this grad cap, they would have to come through us. Or if someone said like, hey, we want to say how it was like, they're gonna want to use a grad cap, but it's gonna be a little bit different than honor rolls. Like, you have to be able to prove that in court, because if we feel like you're infringing upon it, we will sue you, right? As you should anyone else who infringes upon your logos, right? So this is going to be, again, Secretary of State is going to be where you register your company. USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office. This is going to be where you're going to go to get your actual trademark. Now, that process isn't as quick as becoming a legal company. This is going to take you about like a year and a half. And how much did we spend? I think we spent like $1,200 over the course of that period of time. So like, you don't have to pay it all up front. Like, you initially submit your logo, your typeface, and then it goes through a review process. Once it gets out of that review process, you have the permission to use it like publicly, and you can say that it's trademarked. And there's like a 6 month or a year time span that they go through, so anyone could kind of come and contest it, right? And so that's the space to where if I made something that looked like a Coca-Cola logo, Coke would come and say, hey, nah, you can't do that. That's what that period of time is for. Last thing, just get a good lawyer. Specifically in dealing with contracts, right? So for us, that's huge because we're dealing with corporate partners, right? But then also, like, we're dealing with people who are independent and providing services for us. And you want to make sure that it's very clear on what you're paying them and what you're getting back, right? And everyone always gets amnesia when there's a disagreement, right? Whenever there's like, oh, well, you said this and I was supposed to do that, where's it at on paper, right? So, and the best way to make sure that you're protecting yourself and your brand, as well as you're being mindful of the people that you're doing business with, get a lawyer. Before we move on, questions, thoughts? Yes. Give me your name. Hold on. Ooh, South Carolina, Christian brand, but give me your name one more time. Haley. Okay.
So like with the trademark on the logo, I'm still kind of like playing around with my logo, trying to get it solid. So I have the LLC and stuff, but should I wait to get that the logo
Yeah.
trademark before I'm like once I'm 100% sure then go get it?
For sure. For sure. I would say so, just because it costs so much for you to actually get it. And that, like, this is the brand.
Right.
Like, this is when people see your brand, they're going to see this first, right? So I would definitely say take your time on developing your logo, and also understand too that your logo is probably going to change. You know, again, just using them as an example, Coke has changed their logo many a times. I can't remember the IG handle, but there's a page on IG that's dedicated just to logos and how logos transform over the decades. You know, so get to a comfortable place where you're like, hey, this reflects my brand and my identity. But then, go. You know, because you'll sit there and tinker with things and nothing will ever get done. Yeah, are you a tinkerer? Yeah, me too, man. I feel you. What's up?
Would it be okay to trademark just the name and then come back around and once you have a logo, do a separate trademark for that?
If your name is designed in a unique way, right? Or if, like, take Perry Ellis, for example. There's nothing really sexy about Perry Ellis's logo. It's Perry Ellis. So, like, if it's just that, it's that. And two, like, get multiple trademarks. You know, we have a couple, you know, because there's the icon of the grad cap, and then there's the overall logo of Honor Roll that consists of the grad cap as well as the typeface. Yeah. Any other questions about legal? No? All right. Branding. This is something that's super important to me, mainly because this is the stage where you're able to kind of put together like the framework and the structure of your company, right? Who are you guys? Like, what do you guys represent, right? So one of the things that I did with all these slides, with the exception of legal, is I put some questions here, and these are just questions that I've asked myself, or that my partners have asked me, or we've asked each other while going through this whole journey, right? And what I found is that typically in the beginning of your career and developing your brand, you're gonna have questions that are good questions for someone who is starting off for their first year, for their first time. But the more you do it, the more you engage in the process, you're gonna come up with smarter questions to ask yourself, right? You're gonna go through experiences with your brand that you didn't even know to ask those questions, right? But then because of the experience, you know, those questions end up coming up. So one of the ones that I feel like I come back to on a regular basis when I'm designing is, you know, what's inspiring you to create this brand, right? Now that may sound odd for someone who's been doing it for going on 13 years, but it's so easy to get lost in the sauce. You know, all of us are on social media, I'm sure quite a bit. We're constantly being bombarded with ideas and thoughts and images, and all that stuff like does impact how we create and how we design. So it's always important to go back to, why did I start this? Because if I start creating stuff that is getting off of the track that we said that we're on, then we got to regroup. And there's a lot. Like, we have meetings every Wednesday. Tuesday. And sometimes, like, a bulk of our meeting is getting back on the same page, right? I'll design some stuff that in my mind was fire, and I present it to them, and they're like, nigga, no. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe not so much the design is bad, but cost. How are we gonna produce this? You know, we got, you know, storage full of other stuff we need to be moving. So, yeah, what's inspiring you? This is another one that I'll highlight. Am I trying to create an original concept, or am I looking to refresh a familiar concept? So just to kind of break that down, right? Like, and we'll use honor roll. Honor roll had like 3 other names before we settled on honor roll. One of them was called Guts and Glory. I was listening to a Joe Budden record, and he said Guts and Glory, and it just sounded really fly. And then it reflected some of the emotions and stuff that I was going through at that time. So I was like, yeah, this is gonna be it. And then like I started paying attention to what was going on around me, and it was very rock star-ish at that time. So it was like 07, 08. And I knew that name did not, while it may have reflected how I emotionally felt, it didn't in 2007 and 2008, like it was gonna communicate something very different than what I wanted the brand to communicate. So then it's like, all right, what else is there? You know, and what I did was I took like a week and I wrote down a bunch of names and I just sat with them, you know, and I put them on different placements, and I just saw how I felt. And honor roll was something that was familiar, right? It was familiar because I went to school and I knew everybody else went to school. And it also really didn't matter if you was on the honor roll or not, because how we plan on telling this story was going to be in juxtaposition of that, right? It was always going to be this contrast of prestige and excellence mixed with all of the dirty grind stuff that comes with actually building something that's worth having. And I knew that when we started putting it out, and I said, hey, my brand is honor roll. Oh, okay, cool. Like it immediately resonates with them. But for some other people, like that's not the direction they want to use. They don't want to leverage something that's familiar and reinterpret it. They want to have, again, like think about FUBU, right? Or again, we were talking about Chilio. Like no one, FUBU, what does that mean? Chilio, what is that, right? And now you got it. Now you got to start explaining it. And for some brands, that works very well. You're gonna have to decide what is that gonna be for you, right? Like, do you want to, in communicating what you already have for your brand, do you want to spend time explaining that to people? And is it catchy enough to where it's gonna, it's gonna make sense? Or do you want to figure out a way how to reinterpret, represent an idea that people are already familiar with, but you're giving a new interpretation on? Right, so especially like if you're in the beginning stages of your brand, be okay like with, I don't know if I like this, or I've gotten new information and now I want to shift, the brand name. So yeah, want to pause here. Any questions or thoughts you guys have so far? Obviously, specifically as it pertains to branding.
You mentioned the word tinkering. Within like kind of solidifying the concept of honorable clothing, when did you guys how long did it take you to just jump off the board?
2 years.
Even though you did understand like the concept, the whole concept.
2 years. I used my junior and senior year in college to kind of flesh everything out, and then when I graduated from Albany State, I came back up to Atlanta and we got to it immediately. Like we dropped the collection, I think like that. If I graduated on a Saturday, it was that following Friday the product was online, and it's just been us, all right, this didn't work. Let's try this again. All right, I made this mistake. Let's not, make those same mistakes again. I'll also email these slides to you guys at the end, because what I have down here is just like, these are some of the things that while you're going through the branding stage, you want to make sure you check off this list. So again, make sure that you got your patience on point. You're going to want to have a brand name, logo, figure out what your brand colors are, figuring out your mission statement, figuring out your brand ethos, just to kind of stop here. This means like, what is the character of your brand? And that starts to get a little bit past, what the mission of the brand is, but more so like, what does this feel like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? Aesthetically, how does this need to be presented, right? That's all wrapped up in your brand ethos. And then brand font. Sorry, where are we at on time?
8:13.
All right, cool. Finances. I'm actually going to jump down to the bottom first. You're going to need more patience. You're going to need a bookkeeper. You're going to need an accountant, QuickBooks, and financial podcast. I'm going to start the financial podcast one first. I didn't grow up in a very financially literate home. Like, my mom managed the home well, right? But that's not something that we talked about a lot. Obviously, we're in a different time right now where financial literacy, especially amongst Black people, is something that's at the forefront. But having a clear understanding of like your personal finances and how that's going to be leveraged for your business until you can establish business credit on your on the business's own merit, that's going to be super important. There's going to be things that you just don't know about unless you hear them and expose yourself to them, right? So being able to tap into different financial podcasts while you're on the go, like, that's going to be super helpful. Your accountant, this is going to be mainly for dealing with your taxes, right? So for us, like, our accountant doesn't handle all of our day-to-day transactions. That's what our bookkeeper does, right? Your bookkeeper is going to be the person who you're going to go to on a random Thursday when you need to understand, what is going on, with your sales this month, right? Or if you want to be able to have a clear picture on how is money being spent, right? There have been so many times where Shep has come back to me and is like, hey, bruh, you're getting out of control right now with the spending. Not because, we're just out here popping bottles and having a good time, right? But because there's costs associated with everything. And if you're not paying attention to it, like, it's not that it doesn't exist. It ain't that it ain't growing or becoming a problem or less of a problem. It's just that you don't know. And so having a solid bookkeeper that you're consistently talking to, that's going to be super. And that's if you're in fashion or in any other kind of business for that matter. So if you guys decide that, hey, after this, I really don't want to do fashion, a lot of this stuff you'll still be able to transfer into your other business projects. But as it pertains specifically to starting a clothing line, one of the things that was helpful for me is figuring out, like, all right, how much is it going to cost to produce the first, second, and third idea, right? That's not what I did or what we did. We did the complete opposite. And so now I'm telling you guys what I wish I would have known, right? Being able to have a budget sheet that says this is where the money that I'm investing is going. And this is also how I'm going to recoup it so we can do it again. That's going to be important. And having that money allocated for, I'm saying just three releases, because that first release may not go as well as you thought it did, right? You thought it was hot. Your friends even told you it was dope. And then you put it in the market and the market told you otherwise. You put it online and it got 2 likes. You know what I'm saying? And so usually that's the place where people tap out at. So again, going back to more patience, right? You got to be able to put that second idea out, right? And probably what ended up happening, if you're paying attention to why that product failed the last time, you're gonna have some learnings, and you'll probably be, a bit more successful than the last release. But then come that third drop, right? That third drop, in theory, right, should be a culmination of all the learnings of those first 2 releases, right? And so also, like, so scratch like the first, second, third thing out of your mind for a second. Just look at the principles of that. It's not going to be great when you first started, right? Like, very rarely do people come out and they immediately have a hit, right? We're in the business of building brands, right? We're in the business of not having something that is just going to be flash in the pan and going to be here for a moment, but like, we're trying to build something sustainable. Right. So with that, you just want to think through that stuff. And then also, is it the money that I'm about to spend on this product? Is it worth it? Right. And that's going to kind of come into like your goal setting and like what the end goal is, because for some of you guys, the initial goal is just to get the idea out. and that's going to be a victory in and of itself. Whether if it sells or not, you may not be as concerned with that at the moment. That's cool, right? But in our case, we're not playing that kind of game, right? We're at a stage in our company where when we put out product, we need it to sell because we're not just putting out 15 pieces, right? So all of there, depending on where you're at in your journey, like that risk part is you're gonna have to kind of determine that on your own. And two, just to toss this out there, you know, there's not one way to accomplish this, right? There's not one way to start a brand. You know, what we're only doing is presenting to you guys the war report from what we've, you know, kind of come across over the last 13 years. But what will end up happening, just like it happens with everybody, every other creator, just like it happened with me, I'm gonna get information from people and I'm gonna say, man, I never thought about that. I may not need to use this right now, but I'll take this stuff and I'll keep pushing. You know what I'm saying? So everything that we're discussing, you know, again, while most of it, I tried to make sure that it could apply to any kind of business setting you guys are in. Be okay with the fact that like this is gonna change and it's gonna morph. You know, we're very fortunate that we've stuck with Honorable for 13 years, and it didn't turn into another brand. Jerry Lorenzo, on the other hand, had another brand first, and then came Fear of God, right? So everybody's process is gonna look different. Any questions before we move forward? What's up?
At what point did you, because I'm at a point now, it's like everything, all the money that I'm putting into the brand is just being recycled, like it's going towards the next drop.
Yeah.
So what point did you start getting like a profit for yourself? Or do you not get a profit? You just
Yeah. So profitability and having revenue that allows you to sustain like business operations are two very different things, right? So you can have, let me answer the question. The answer to that question is we are, call it a year ago, right? Call it a year ago that, you know, that I was able to start taking some kind of a salary or income monthly from the brand, right? Everybody's process, again, didn't take them 12 years to get there though, you know, so, but for us, that's when it was. And it was mainly because we were still trying to figure out what our sales strategy was, right? We're not a brand that's built off of hype, right? So shout out to being in this amazing studio, shout out to Kirk, right? But we don't have those relationships to where we could go and put product, you know, on any artist, right? So how are we gonna make an impact, right? Where are we gonna put our stake in, right? For us, it's been making sure that the product was quality, but then also making sure that the experiences that we were creating for people, you know, that it mattered and it kept people wanting to come back and be a part of this thing, right? So, took us some time to get there. It took us some time to get there. What's up, G?
So where's your startup money come from?
Say it again.
Where's your startup money come from?
So when I was in undergrad, I was an RA, resident assistant for 3.5 years. I worked at Books A Million in college. I worked at Lids, but that was also a job that I had when I was in high school, and I just transferred to Albany. And then I worked at Verizon. So to answer that question, it was working. You know what I'm saying? Say it again?
Where'd you quit?
That was a few different iterations. So when I first got out of college,
When did you quit your last job?
my last job, so I didn't get quit, they fired me. Fired is rough. I got laid off. It's during COVID, so we'll just say that, you know, because everybody was tightening their belt. So October,
2020?
yeah, October of 2020, I get laid off. Now at the same time, you know, a couple days later, I reached out again to my boy Nana, and I'm like, yo, listen, y'all got anything going on at Foot Locker Corporate? Like I felt like I had done enough with the brand to where I could probably go get a job in corporate fashion doing something, right? And then he was like, nah, we don't, but we are starting to bring in more black brands into the company. Is that something that you're interested? Well, there was no other money wasn't coming from any other place, so it's like, all right, let me continue to double down on that, right? And then from there, you know, we get a partnership with Square, and that's before the product from Foot Locker comes out. So those things kind of happen at the same time, right? Then there's been partnerships after partnerships that have kind of came about, as well as just like our own direct-to-consumer sales growing.
So when you was working, was you looking at Honor Roll as a side hustle?
Nah. It was so my plan was, all right, let me go buy this house and let me go and stack up for a year, and then I'll walk away from corporate for good for the final time after that, because I have me a little cushion, crib, I ain't worried about where I'm staying. And right before I was able to purchase my house, that's when the job got pulled up under me, right? So the plan was to do this, to actually probably just now be quitting and doing the brand full time, but the Lord's kind of saw different, and yeah, here we are. Yeah. How many of you guys want this to be like? Oh, you had a question? What's up, G?
Yeah, try to keep this from being too long, but with this last bullet point you got here, something I struggle with kind of a bit myself is quality. I like to push quality, which made me get into sewing all my stuff by myself. And now we're in a time where a lot of people like to print blanks and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I just want to know how Honor Roll handles that, and kind of how do you guys not compromise, like the bullet point is asking. Quality.
Yeah. So, well, that's a good segue into production. So for us, again, I mentioned it earlier, a big thing that I've always been, something that's always been big for me is research, right? So if I'm gonna get into something, like I really want to get into it, like all of it, right? And so that's what, initially I would go out to, go back home to LA, go to Garment District, get rolls of fabric, put it in my suitcase, bring it back here to Atlanta. That became very unreasonable very quickly, right? And so from there, I was like, all right, well, I started finding out about textile shows, right? And so now I started going to those, and now I started educating myself more about fabric and production processes, right? So while at one point anyone probably could have told me anything, or I could have went to like one of these websites that has, hey, you could come to us and we could do everything for you, but you're gonna pay for that, right? You're gonna pay a cost for that. That education is what kind of helped us to make sure that like the quality was always gonna be on point, you know, and too, like we were very clear about where we saw our brand sitting at. Like, what other brands do we see? I mean, when we met, right? What was I doing? I was at Nordstrom's looking at what else was on the floor because of the potential opportunity we had with them. So I need to be able to see like, what is the quality like in these stores and in these spaces, and is it matching up to what we doing, right? And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Like I recently, again, was at InvestFest, and there was a speaker talking about making sure that you do not, you never change the music based off the musicians you have. And you may be the musician who doesn't have like the best quality. And someone just said that they took a step back. Was that you, Hal? Taking a step back, like once you realize like, oh snap, like this is kind of where I want to be playing at, but I ain't really on that level yet. All right, cool. Let me allow time again. Yep, even more patience. You know what I'm saying? Be patient in going through the process and learning the skills. You know, learning the textile world in it itself is a whole other thing. Working with factories, I know AK mentioned that she does this, you do the sewing yourself, right?
Yeah, but I usually gravitate towards more like dyeing fabrics instead. So just finding fabrics and dyeing.
Bet.
And cutting.
So yeah, man, like even with that, right? Like what's gonna work for me, and again, because of how I want to scale the company, like there are gonna be things that I can't compromise on, right? As far as quality. But if that's not what I'm doing, then having a self-contained workshop where I'm making everything, that could absolutely work, right? So again, it is all really depends on like what is my other partner Chris we're in ministry with, and she had been sewing for like 30 years, and so like she was on it, making my patterns, the whole nine, and it was cool when it was summertime and we were doing t-shirts, and that was it. Because for a t-shirt, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces maybe on that SKU. So that was okay. But then I was like, oh man, well if she could do that, let me see if she could do a collar shirt, and that's like 12 pieces. And this is one person that is making the pattern, cutting the fabric for that full production load, sewing each of those pieces. And for context, when I go to my factory, there's a whole floor of people doing that. There's one person that's cutting fabric. There's one person that's applying the collar. There's another person that's applying the buttons. And so to have one person do all that work, it just wasn't realistic, you know, and it showed in the quality of the product as it came out. And it wasn't because she couldn't do good work. It's because for what we were trying to accomplish, one person just couldn't do that. Yeah. Any other questions here? Research skills. That's the last thing I'll say here. Like, no one is gonna give you guys anything. No one gave us anything. People be real finicky about their connects. And and don't nobody want to give away like where they get their blank t-shirts from, even though everybody uses the same 3 or 4 people, right? No one wants to let you know where the factory is at because, you know, they think that, oh, you're gonna steal the special sauce. But the truth of the matter is, as everybody said in here, this thing costs money. So you can have all the good ideas you want. If you ain't got the money to actually execute that, in addition to the skill sets that you don't know you have, like, yeah, it ain't gonna matter. But yeah, man, research skills. Google is your best friend. All right, marketing. Now, I will say that I am not the marketer of Honor Roll. Like, that's Chris's area. Shep plays in that area as well, but that's not my thing. But because I've been around the company, I can at least tell you guys some high-level things on what to consider, right? Just wanted to highlight this real quick. Again, patience. Like, every single step that you're going through, patience upon more patience is going to be needed, because you will, at some point, we're not going to talk about it today, but you're going to have to build a team. And these are going to be, and while you're in your conscious state and you're aware and you're excited and all that, you're going to make a decision to say, hey, I want, you know, one of my best friends to be my business partner, right? And they're going to say to you, yeah, I think that's a great idea. This is a good thing we're doing. And then y'all going to piss each other off. Then you guys are going to have different opinions, right? You guys are going to say that we are agreeing on the same customer, but how we're going to engage that customer is going to be completely different, right? And all of that is marketing stuff, right? Who is your audience? How much money are you going to spend to actually get in front of that audience? Even the relationships that we build, like, a lot, that stuff is marketing, right? It may not be marketing in the sense of, hey, I'm spending this dollar amount for these ads and that's going to accomplish this, but when I go out and I meet people and I'm engaging in communities, like, that's market. I'm marketing the brand. People are seeing me, they're seeing the brand, and we're creating opportunities where actual marketing work can happen, right? So being here in Kirk Studios and you know, through Elliot, shout out to Elliot, right? My guy. I get an opportunity to, like, that's a relationship that was built over years, right? And now I get to be in this amazing studio and connect with dope creators like Ryan, right? Who can provide some, you know, aspects of marketing services for us, right? But none of that happens without building those relationships. Any questions you guys kind of what's up?
So I know you're not like in the marketing yourself, but what do you see y'all moving more towards, like, with marketing? Are y'all staying on social media? Are you staying, like, connecting with people? Just more
All the above. We're not going to be able to get around, like, people live online, and that's not going to change, right? So Yeah, and not just social media, but at some point we're gonna have to figure out, and people are figuring it out right now, like what does this and like that whole metaverse gonna look like, right? Like what, or even what does a post-pandemic, experience look like? Because now people are trying to be outside more, so a lot of the marketing that was being done in the last 2 years, where it was straight digital, because people couldn't go outside, that's starting to change a bit now. We're all, here amongst ourselves now, right? So it's always going to be you're gonna have to use it all, right? This is important, right? Like as much as this is an educational opportunity, this is also a marketing opportunity, right? So yeah. What's up?
I wanted to ask this on the last slide, but I think it kind of plays in both. Do you guys like try to push like a product first kind of business model, or are y'all like trying to like market yourselves, and then like here's this ideology that happened, I want you to use?
This is like legit. That question is what has cost us hours on our meetings, going back and forth about like, is, does the product need to go first, or does marketing need to go first, right? The answer is it's both. It could be both, right? Like both answers could be right. So let's take a look at honor roll again. And actually, while I'm doing this, let me pass around some more product since we're also talking about product. You can build your brand on, man, like we have the best quality product. We make the best cut and sew. Our screen print tees are fire. Our textiles are, no one's messing with it, right? You could go that route. Or you could go the route where it's take Atlanta influences everything, right? Clothing brand, they sell product, they got merch. They're not necessarily doing the same thing that we're doing. Their brand is based more so on messaging, like purely messaging, right? And they're killing it. They're doing an amazing job. But for us, it's messaging and product, right? I think that probably Chris would, if he was here, he would say that no, like you find something that's really good, and then you figure out how to put that in front of people as much as possible. Shep, that's what Chris would say, right? Right. I don't disagree with that, but because I was the one who started the brand, and that's just how the cookie crumble product ended up being. That's where I spent all my time at. So I was able to influence that for better or for worse. You know what I'm saying? That's where the priority was. Yeah. There was someone else had their hand raised. Was I tripping? No. What's up?
You had project management app.
Yeah.
Can you first name
Asana.
1 or 2, and then how does a clothing brand use a project management app?
Yeah.
It's gonna be different than just.
So for us, it's I don't know if we use it differently than any other business would, because there's tasks, right? There's deadlines, there's things that need to be submitted to the larger group, right? I think I mentioned timelines. I'll say that again just because I'm always missing timelines and they're always upset at me about that. So again, like the project management tool helps to make sure that all of that there's at least one centralized location where everybody could go to see what needs to be done, what their responsibilities are. And it really does make for the business to run a whole lot smoother, because you're not going to notes or text messages on your phone. It's like, nah, it's all here in the system. You knew what you were supposed to be doing by this date. Do you have it or not? No? Okay, well then we will figure out whatever that means. But yeah, Asana. Shep, what were we using before Asana? Or were we using anything before? Okay, Asana. Let's see, is there anything? Oh, one thing I will say here, another thing that I'll say is, with what can be done free or organically, there are going to be some things you just have to pay for, right? And there's going to be some things that you shouldn't skip out on. One of those I would say absolutely is photography, right? Like don't cheat on the photography work because it will show online, which also doesn't mean that you always have to pay a ton of money, right? You'd be surprised how people are willing to work with you if you have something legitimate, and two, like that you're able to communicate that vision to somebody that says like, man, I want to buy into that, right? So yeah, don't cheat on the photo work, but there are ways that you can absolutely, get your brand out there that doesn't always require and may even be a bit more efficient than spending ad dollars on Instagram. Case in point, when we first started Honor Roll, this is again 2010. This also is where I met Cam at. Everybody was on Peter Street at that time, right? And there was a pizza spot called Slice that used to have these parties every Wednesday or every Thursday. And so because I knew that my customer was the customer that I wanted to reach was going to be there, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm out there with a handful of stickers, a duffel bag of my samples, and a trunk full of product. And so what I would do is, again, context, social media was not what it was at this point, right? But what it allowed me to do was to go introduce my brand to people, right? And then if there was the slightest, in looking at the sticker, I'm going straight into like, yo, you want to take a look at some of the product? And I know we've all seen these people out and about before, right? And so you have to be able to have some confidence of people being like, nah, I'm straight. You know what I mean? But that was one of the ways that it was free as far as like, I didn't have to pay money, but it cost me time, right? But that time, that paid off because that gave me the opportunity to meet people and develop relationships that I'm still, benefiting from to this day. So yeah, you're gonna have to pay for some things, but other things like, roll your sleeves up and start mixing it up with people. Any questions here before we move forward? All right, sales. And so it was asked just about like when did we start being able to take a profit or being able to pay ourselves, and all that again translates back to how you're going to move your product. And this is something that for us has been it's been one of the harder things that we've had to figure out, because again, there were just certain things that we didn't have access to that other brands had access to that made them go. And so for us, we had to, we knew that if we could get in front of people and we could show them the product, we knew, and not just show them, but communicate and create this experience where, we didn't spend a lot of money on the pop-up, but it was very intentional and thoughtful. And it also tied back into what the brand represented. We knew that we could get people out to those spaces that they were gonna buy product. And that's what has consistently happened since we started. Those experiences, right, because that's what we had to work with because we didn't have any big retail relationships. I will say shout out, they don't exist anymore, but shout out to Fly Kicks. That was the first store on Peter Street that actually took us in. So say he runs a brand called Raunchy, and then Ebony Ward. She used to run that store, and now like she's managing Future and Gunna and all those guys, right? So really saying, okay, this is what we have to work with, and we diving in on that created all these other opportunities, right? We don't get, and so even now, the stuff that we're doing like with the after school program, right? Our corporate partners are really intrigued by that. Now, they're not doing that kind of work with us, but for whatever reason, that kind of work matters to them, right? So again, like what started out as us doing something out of necessity, closed-minded, you were here for closed-minded. Again, that came from Chris having an office at WeWork, and then because he had the membership there, we were able to use the lobby, right? So and then that also created sales for us, right? But it also gave us branding opportunities. It gave us opportunities to develop community, right? All that stuff ends up impacting the bottom line as time goes on, But what I would say is that a lot of times, again, because of lack of patience, people don't go through the process to actually get to the place I think where, I'm having this conversation, right? It's easy to tap out. It's easy to get very, very frustrated when you got containers of product that isn't moving and you can't quite figure out why, right? Give yourself the time. You know what I'm saying? Give yourself time. And then also like make up in your mind, where do I tap out at? Right? And for me, at one point it was like I wasn't even considering that question. Right? I wasn't considering, how do I leave this? Or what's the end game with this? That quickly changed when I got laid off though, because now this had to solely provide for me. Right? And so then in light of that, it's like, yo, if this can't pay for my bills, I got to figure something else out. And then that led to us setting goals, right? And then in setting goals, our focus and our attention went to those things, and I also have to, say that, God's grace and like allowing this stuff to play out the way that it played out, is very critical, because I also know that as dope as we are, as great as the product is, I know other dope creatives out there, and there's some things that, the ball just didn't fall in the court for you. You know what I'm saying? It didn't pan out that particular way. You didn't get those opportunities for whatever those reasons may have been. And so, I also, look at God's grace. It's like, man, like that plays a huge part in how we get to this point. But again, wrapping up the sales, you guys are going to go through like your journey in how you move your product it should be fluid, right? Because once you figure out something doesn't work, you need to quickly be able to pivot and say, all right, boom, this is how we're going to, reconcile that. All business, and especially on the fashion side, is just problem solving, right? How am I going to solve today's problem, right? That problem may be on the sales side. On Wednesday, Thursday, it may be marketing. On Sunday night, you may get an email that lets you know now that going into the next week, you're about to have production issues that you got to solve. Finances, I'm not going to say that they're always an issue, but it's always something to be considering, right? Because you're going to be spending money, you're going to be making money, and sometimes there's going to be no movement at all, right? And now how do I keep this thing going, right? So what I hope I did in this time period is, kind of like demystify some of the things about starting a brand, right? Like this is very doable. Like all the ideas that you guys have in y'all heads and the stuff that y'all are working on, even if it takes, if it turns into something else or there's like another derivative of it, like you guys can make money and a living off of your ideas and being creative. My hope is that as you guys are going through your process, you guys are asking yourselves these questions, right? And as you guys are asking these questions, hopefully like you guys get a little bit deeper to like, man, like whatever that problem is for you with what you're doing with your brand right now and getting over to the next hump, hopefully like these questions or even just thinking about these types of questions helps to give you the answers, because even the stuff that I put down here at the bottom for everyone to say, hey, like, all right, go to Skillshare. Yeah, you need a screen printer. Hey, Facebook ad manager, like all that stuff you need it, right? That's going to be important, and you're going to need this stuff at different times, right? And there's going to be some things that for you is going to come very quickly, but for someone else, it's going to take some time. Like we literally have been spending 13 years figuring out how we're going to sell Honor Roll. And it's in this year that we have finally started to figure out, oh, okay, this is how this goes. So yeah, man, be patient. And if there's any way that we can help you guys out, man, we're here for it. So yes.
Speaking of how you're gonna sell Honor Roll, did you ever go through a process of like your price, your tier, or your pricing of your church, and like what do you want it to price at, how accessible do you want it to be to people, and
And also, where you wanted to land in the market as far as like with the Supreme or with the Gucci or with you know, God is dope or some shit like that.
Yeah. So, and just to make sure I heard the question correctly, how do we go through the tiering of pricing? That's actually that was a recent hurdle that we, not want to say hurdle, but question that we had to figure out, right? Because we're going into Foot Locker. Now, prior to Foot Locker, we sold some stuff to Wish. We're in Merge and Phipps Plaza. So that just kind of gives you a context to like what kind of price points are sitting in those stores, right? So then to say, all right, well, we about to do this partnership with Foot Locker, that seems like a bit of a left turn from the other retail partners that we had, right? And so I was like, all right, how are we gonna do this? Because we're not gonna stop doing like the coaches jackets that y'all saw, right? Like we're not gonna do that, but the retail on that is like 150, 160. We know that some of our retail partners, their customer, that's not gonna be, it's not gonna fit for them. But what we did find out was, hey, listen, we probably can still sell a little bit more as far as the pricing above like what's in the stores right now, right? So Shep would highlight, man, like this Nike tee is $30. What's gonna make someone choose our brand over that Nike tee, right? And ours is more expensive, and they don't know us. Well, let's talk about it. These are my thoughts based off of like seeing the sales, and then knowing that while we're dope and we've spent money, advertising on social media, we know that everybody who's walking into that store, like they haven't heard of it. Everyone's not familiar with us, right? So let's just break down like this t-shirt. The first thing that they're gonna see is honor roll, right? Now, again, who's going in there to shop, right? Like obviously I'm looking at everyone's shoes. For the most part, you have probably gone into Foot Locker and you have seen, you've shopped in there, right? So that also lets us know that, all right, our customer is going in there. Now, let's hope that the branding, and the design communicates well. And what we've seen is that it does. And this shirt in particular is like our best selling one. And so what I'm able to kind of pick off is like, man, how is it that a t-shirt that's $10 more than everything else that's on the floor, how is it having 55% sell-through rates in the first couple of weeks, right? Branding was strong, the quality was good, and the customer, when they picked it up, they can tell that this is not the regular degular. This isn't that third. I see where my $10 is coming at, right? And then the messaging on the back of us describing what excellence is, right? So you have these two very, very critical branding and design points that's in the garment that to the customer, they are saying is more than, it's worth the extra $10. That tells us now that we actually don't need to drop our prices, right? What we do need to do is be intentional on where we're setting product, because why shouldn't we sell $40 tees to a nationally known corporation like Foot Locker, right? Does Nike or Jordan, tell Amam or tell Bodega that, do they tell Nike or Jordan like, nah, we ain't gonna sell y'all because y'all selling the dicks, or because y'all selling the Foot Locker? No, right? So then therefore, it becomes our job to make sure that we're managing our business and our brand properly so that there is no confusion. Yes, you can get this kind of thing here because it sits in a price point, right? But this other thing here, yeah, you can either come directly to us, or you could go to someone like Nordstrom's, or you could go to a Social Status, or, wherever else. So in short, we made the decision to bet on our quality. We made a decision to bet on the brand that we had been building and saying, if we're not going to succeed, at least in this particular store, it's going to have to be on our terms, right? Because there was a point where we were doing lesser quality tees, and like it was cool, but it wasn't us. And so again, like going back, where was that at? Branding. You know what I'm saying? Like, who am I creating this product for? You know, this part, and particularly the familiar concept, like that really played to our benefit, right? But for somebody else, like, again, you may want to go in a different direction. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, what's up?
You go back to the last slide real quick.
The last slide?
Yeah, I kind of want to make a point, but because this is the last point, can I explain my practice to my peers?
Yeah.
You saw it on the branding slide as well. I just wanted to ask why you thought that was so important for us to be able to do, like having what sounds like a sales pitch,
Yeah.
and for somebody like me who's really obsessed with the artfulness of fashion, and like you don't go into like a museum and like have somebody explain the picture to you.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of conveys its own message to you. How did you guys kind of play around with that? Because you said you kind of did things on your own terms.
Mm-hmm.
How did you keep from compromising that idea?
How did I keep from compromising?
Just wanted to do things on your own terms, and why is this statement here very important to have?
Yeah. So one thing I used to do was walk around my track on when I was at Albany State and pretend like Larry King was interviewing me about honor roll. And what that did was I thought about the questions that Larry would ask me, rest in peace. And then, cause he would be tough on the people that he was interviewing. And I would talk to myself for hours, you know, about like the brand and like asking myself questions. And that was one of the ways that I got comfortable with it because I knew what it was, right? And communicating to my peers, you just don't know who you're talking to, you know? And if this is your brand and you saying that you believe in it, I mean, you should be able to talk about it. And I think the highlight of this is so important because of where we're going digitally and the human interaction and communicating is just something that if we're not conscious of, like, not only will that affect us like in our business, in our personal life, but for sure in our business, because, and it's something that I struggle with, you know, even now, right? Like as much as like I have sat with my brand and have thought about it, right? I still have to be mindful that I got to be clear, right? A lot of us are creatives in here, right? And so we could be in our heads a lot and we could be saying stuff to ourselves that sounds good, but it just don't come out the right way, right? We got to spend time with ourselves and working through those thoughts, right? And then again, like, so we don't provide anything like this, but like there's this organization called Toastmasters, right? And so I know them because of my time in corporate America. What they do is it's just a group of people that work on public speaking. You got to be able to tell people why what you're doing matters, right? You got to be able to tell people clearly why the brand that you're creating, why it's important for it to exist, right? If I couldn't communicate clearly to, you know, Shep about what it was that we're doing, he's not partnering with me. Same thing with Chris, a stranger who I don't know and passing out stickers to. He asked me about what the brand was. What is this? And I told him. And the nigga believed me. And here we are. You know what I'm saying? We don't get into Foot Locker if I can't sit down and have a conversation with a buyer and a sales rep and be able to speak the language of that particular industry. That communicating clearly, yeah, and this whole document, it should be living and breathing and stuff that we consistently come back to fine tune, because again, like, what's my budget? We got to answer that question every single day, right? Big box retail versus pop-up, we just had that. We still have that conversation today, right? So, yeah. Sir, what we got? Okay, cool. So one of the things the last thing I think we're gonna do to wrap this up, I had a sheet on there for you guys, and this was a worksheet that just kind of walk. And actually, let me pull it out too. Hey, Chef, can you pass me a worksheet, bro?
You ready to move on to the worksheet part?
Yeah.
All right, before we do that, we actually got pizza and wings. We're going to eat real quick, just to take a little 10-minute break.
Yeah.
And then we get back to this.
Okay, cool. If y'all got questions for me, like while y'all eating, please feel free. Like same thing with Chef. Like we here to answer whatever y'all need.
So yeah, who wants some pizza? Just go into the lounge real quick. Go ahead and get
Well, I guess one thing I would ask is there anything in particular from like what we talked about today? Any question that you have about the product or about any of these categories that we didn't get a chance to address?
Well, I know one of the things for me, me and my brand members, was about we wanted to get it more into cutting this on.
Yeah.
That was my thing, because as you can see, like the shirts and stuff we get from another place,
Mhm.
but as far as the stitching that's on here, we get these made up and we actually stitch them ourselves.
Yeah.
So I was asking you, was there a point in you guys' career where you guys were actually doing it yourself? Because that's where we at.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I mentioned before, it was a very short period of time, but we've always had a relationship with screen printer factories or cut and sew factories, and I just knew that my time wasn't best spent learning how to do that.
Right.
My time is best spent getting this product in front of people, right? So let me let them do what they do good, and then I'll do what I do well. So. But what I will say though is that if you wouldn't have told me, I would have thought that you may have gotten this from overseas. But if you wouldn't have told me that these were blanks that you got, I wouldn't have known. Right. So like you did a really good job at even like the repurposing on the tags. You know what I'm saying? Making sure that if this was a blank, right, someone's gonna have to do a lot of what I just did to see if it is a blank or not. So yeah, man, keep going, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to open.
Nah, because we gotta get through everybody else. Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right, who's next?
I haven't written down about it.
Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me sign this too for you. There you go, G.
Appreciate it.
So, who's the brand and what are you making? I mean, as far as who is the brand, I am the brand. Everything that's associated with the brand is me. I don't really like to say I have a brand yet because it's still in its conceptual stages. I've had brands before, I had to scrap them. I feel like they're all going to culminate in what this final one's going to end up being and what I'm making. What I like to describe to people, how I like to describe it to people is more so like, I was kind of explaining it to her in the back. I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but like I want my pieces to kind of feel like how you see an art piece when you go in the museum. Like, I kind of wanted to convey a feeling. Like I don't want to have to explain it to you, even though I'm willing to do so. Like I want to make conversation pieces. Like you see that art piece, and you go back home and you talk about it, like, oh, it made me feel this way, and I feel like that's what I'm really focused on. Finances, how would this be paid for? Luckily, I'm able to. I have a savings saved up. I'm gonna use that as my initial investment because this is my life. I'm trying to live off of this. That's all I kind of got to say to that. That's the investment I'm gonna make on that. Production, where would this be made? I make it all. I taught myself how to sew. Been doing that for about 3 years now. I kind of learned how to sew by kind of just taking the seam river, kind of breaking out any garment that I thought was interesting and reverse engineering it, trying to just put it back together. That's really my main thing. Marketing, how am I going to present it? I'm kind of learning from my past mistakes, kind of trying to let it speak for itself when nobody knows who I am. It's not the way to go. I'm kind of do a lot more guerrilla marketing, kind of getting out in the faces of the people who I want to be in, letting them know what the brand is about, letting them see it for themselves, letting them be able to get that initial feeling that I'm wanting them to have in person. So I'm gonna be in people's faces wherever I need to be at. And sales, how am I gonna sell my product? I'm trying to largely do it online. I would love to do some pop-ups once I'm able to accumulate some funds. Hopefully I can get into some cool stores, some hip stores. Really don't plan on doing big retail, just for the niche and the lane I kind of want to exist in. But that's definitely how I'm going to be doing ourselves online and kind of boutique stores, things of that nature.
That's fire, man. What's up, G?
Did you make that?
Nah, everybody keeps asking. Nah, I didn't. I wish I did. This is definitely a dope shirt, but nah, I didn't make it.
Hold on 1 second. Boom.
Dang.
All right, G. One thing that I just wanted to highlight, he mentioned a number of times that this isn't like what he's working on is a culmination of a number of things that he's been working on for a minute. Again, like that's just an example of like, yo, like fall in love with the process. Like don't be too lofty to where like nothing ever comes out, because that can absolutely happen as well. But man, like don't be afraid to let something evolve. You know, where you starting at right now is not going to be where you end up in the next 5 years. And two, from what he was saying and what I've heard from, you know, a number of you guys today, pop-ups are going to be a very, very big deal for you, right? Because you don't need anyone to allow you to do it, right? For us, like no one gave us permission to do a pop-ups. We had the money, and so we did it, right? And that is going to be a great place where you're going to be able to work through something like that trial and error and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. All right, who else we got next?
I do.
All right.
I didn't feel it out. I'm gonna do like Charles.
Now you straight?
But so my brand is called Public Figure Brand. I say like Charles is for the introvert, extroverted. The conversation starter. It's not any time like I wear my clothes.
I absolutely remember you now from
And people-
Close-Minded.
Ask me like, what does that say? Where do you get that from? But my problem is like, as an artist, I have a hella ideas. So me just being able to focus on like, you know, people say just focus on 1 or 2 items and just keep pushing that. It's hard for me to just stay put on those 1 or 2 things. And especially I print a lot of my own stuff, so it's hard to like also if I post something, people are like, can I get that? But I'm like, I don't really sell this, you know?
Yeah.
Like, should I sell it? I had a lesson too. I was in a store in Punt City Market, the Village Retail. Have y'all heard of that store?
Yeah.
Like I had the opportunity to be in there. And you know, sometimes they say you
cool.
grow too fast. It's kind of hard for me to keep up with the demand of what they wanted. But yeah, so to answer some of the questions, I'm the brand. I was telling Charles, like, I'm kind of switching, trying to figure out how to market the brand that's not like a lifestyle brand or like a streetwear brand, but be like more like wellness. Because I feel like I'm very much into like new thought philosophy and stuff like that. So thinking about, like you said, you would walk around the track and like Larry King interviewing you. I feel like there's not any particular way to build a brand. It's all about your mindset, your perspective on things, and just being positive and knowing that it's all gonna work out, and just keep going after what you want. So that's kind of like my message in the brand, and like it's turning into like me expressing the message through my clothing.
Yeah. That's what's up.
Yeah. How will I pay for it? My savings, me working. Ideally, I'd like to print my own products. Have a print studio. I used to live in New York, so I did have a studio there while I was screen printing my own products. And how am I going to present the brand? Social media, guerrilla marketing, pop-ups, things like that. And same as selling it online. And eventually I like to have like a screen printing space where people could come, like, you want to learn and you can print your own stuff and also sell the product.
That's dope. That's dope, man.
That's up too.
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire, fire, fire. That's what's up,
Yeah.
man. There you go. No doubt, man. Thank you for coming through, man.
Yeah.
Who we got next? All right. Nice designer hat.
All right, it's my boy. Yeah, so it's my brother. All right. The name of my brand is Glad We Met. It's a luxury leisure clothing brand.
Honestly, the name itself, I know a lot of people just like love the name, but honestly for me, the name came from just constant interaction that I would have with individuals. They would share their vision, they would share some of the things that they want to go, what they want to do, and I've just always been inquisitive about people's stories, and so just through the conversations, a lot of times people would leave the conversation and be like, "Man, I'm glad we met." And so one thing led to another thing, and when I was just sitting down, like, what name can I come up with the best? I started to look inwardly and how I make other people feel, because fashion is more than just putting on clothes. And so for me, creating this brand, luxury leisure clothing, I see it much more than just a clothing brand. I see it as a full service creative agency. So just in a nutshell, as we're talking about clothing, for me, I would love to focus on creating quality products, but also at the same time creating something that that when you think about it and you look at it in your wardrobe, you know that it has a definite meaning, that you were there when you saw the short film or the documentary, so you feel that type of connection to it at the end of the day. So I think it'll be beyond the brand to have a name that said "Glad we met," and when people see it, they don't connect with it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I want to actually project and also at the same time produce. How will it be paid? So I'm a project manager for a global HR firm. So thank God for good finances, and
That's
good
right.
salary. So
That's right.
that'll be how will it make a profit? So one of the things that I've started to gear more towards, my background is fashion design. I have a degree in fashion design. I started out, Glad We Met, as running it as a creative agency. So for the last 2 years when I got my LLC, when I moved here, but now I've just centered back into focusing on what my passion is, which is clothing. So lucky for us, we still have clients that still call up on us and need our services. So I have the benefit of operating as a successful luxury leisure clothing brand, but also at the same time as a creative agency as well. So where will the product be made? The product will be made here in Atlanta. Who will make it? I do most of all the designs in Photoshop, and then I also have a lot of other great, dope visual artists who are friends that I collaborated with that'll actually help me as well. How are you going to present the brand? I plan on using short films, also short length reels, social media, also in-person type of interactions and stuff like that. So that'll be how we'll present the brand. And then how are we going to sell the product? I believe in, of course, starting off with the first steps is creating a personalized Shopify website. And then also, moving forward to where you can have a full-length website. So yeah.
Appreciate that, G. Yeah, man. There you go. Oh, dope.
Just swipe through.
I like that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's solid, man.
Thank you guys.
All right. Who?
All right. Okay, so the name of my brand is The Unclassified Cool. It came about when I initially started my blog back in college. So this is around 2009, 2010. And I had actually had a shirt made with my brand name on it. And when I wore it out, people just gravitated to it like, where can I buy it or where can I get it? And I didn't have any idea of doing a clothing line. So that kind of like birthed that part.
Yeah.
And the products I sell are shirts, bags, hats, finances, self-funding, pre-sales, sales, business funding if it's available, production, where would this product be made, all of the logos and all of the writing I've done myself, like just Photoshop or different apps.
Yeah.
Vendors, source online. I have a screen printer in Atlanta. That's located in Atlanta. Marketing. I do creative directing. I do have a degree in fashion merchandising and design. So the shoots, social media. I am the brand, so everything that I put out, I wear, and that's how I get word of mouth or like my customers that buy from me. They actually are the brand themselves as well because they have the style and the creative technique to wear the different pieces. And to sell online pop-ups, I've never did a pop-up. I've been approached many times. I just haven't had
Courage.
the courage to do it.
It's all good, man.
Because I initially, how I see it in my mind, I want to do it like magic.
Yeah.
Like you have the whole setup. I don't want to just set a table up and sell, at a pop-up. But I do want to like curate my own and like give that environment.
Yeah. One thing I will say to that, at some point you gotta jump off the porch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's not always gonna be like, there's where we wanna go.
Right.
And then there's like, all right, like what can we do like in the meantime? So, but yeah, man, that's what's up. Was that sales? Oh, sales was the pop-up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Online
cool.
pop-ups. I have an online store.
There you go, bro. Appreciate you, man. Who else we got? All right.
I'm not good at this.
You're gonna do fine.
Yeah. I'm hanging, I guess. I'm like social.
Nah, you straight.
But my brand is a faith brand. It started. I was at a point where, like my whole life, I had to move on faith. I came from a small town, and coming to the city, I had to like step out on faith, and like my whole family, like they never, came this far, or even thought of starting a clothing brand. Like all the things that I've done, it's been solely based on faith, and so that's why I created the brand, A Faith Brand. I just wanted to share with others what it's like to have faith, because I got so far with just having just a little bit of faith. It's got me to the point, like, everyone from my hometown's like, girl, how? Tell me. And I'm like, just have faith. And then, so that's the point. Like I told y'all earlier, like, I'm not into fashion. I don't really care. But I feel like this is the way God is, like, bringing me to spread this word, His word. So, how will this be paid for? So I'm a personal trainer and a social media influencer, so I get paid from that, and that's how I pay for
Sure.
this. That's why I'm like, when am I gonna make money? Because it's like, it's inconsistent being an influencer because brands and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that helps me along with my brand too.
Yeah.
Where would this from? So I get these shirts, I get them screen printed, and as far as the design goes, I make it just the message that I feel like I was trying to get me to get out. For example, I'll show y'all one. So this is this one.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah. And then the front says, I made a deal with God. So I don't know if y'all have ever heard this, like in songs and stuff. It's like a lot of people be like, I made a deal with the devil, I'm on demon times, like that type of stuff. So that's where I came up with, instead of making deals with the devil, making deals with God. And it's not like you going halfway with God, but it's just saying, I'm choosing this path, not that way. So,
That's dope,
yeah,
man.
that's that.
That book print on
Yeah, it's spoken. Yeah, I wanted to try it out. I was like, I don't know. I tried it out, and yeah, that's that. So I've been doing a lot of social media. I'm at a point now, because I have a lot of followers, and I've sold to all of them. And I'm at a point now with my marketing is my biggest thing I'm trying to get over. I'm trying to reach more people. And I'm paying all these ads. I just got a marketing agency, and it's just like, I don't think they're doing that job.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm trying to do these things too to, network with more people.
Yeah.
Because it's like, your following and the people you know can only get you so far. So I'm trying to that's where I'm at. I'm trying to get past and get more people in it, opposed to just my followers. And how will I sell my products? Just my followers, and then I'm working on kind of like being more social and doing pop-ups and stuff like that. So
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yo, for someone who's like very nervous about sharing, like you did a great job, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you did a great
Yeah,
job.
because I'm just on social media and then so being in here and talking it's different. Thanks.
No doubt. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
All right. Did anyone else want to share? All right, boom. Okay. Well, last one. All right. What we got, man?
I'm gonna put them all out.
And I'll probably also toss in some other resources in there just based off of some of the things that you guys have said that I think that may be helpful. Yeah. How do I need to close out?
Let me get you over there.
Okay.
I wanted to close out the video one more.
Okay, go ahead.
Just give them the, I appreciate you guys.
Okay. Do I need to say anything about the studio or night school?
Oh, you can.
Okay.
You can plug the brand again, whatever.
Okay. All right. Appreciate y'all coming.
We'll give them 1 second, let them close off the video right now.
1 second, y'all. Nah, not yet.
Yeah, appreciate you guys coming out again to night school at Kirk Studio. Again, I'm Blair Caffey with Honor Roll Clothing. This was really, really inspiring even for me, like to be able to hear you guys talk about the brands that you're working on and all the amazing things you guys are doing. I really hope that the information that we gave was helpful. And yeah, like I said, we'll be sure to shoot you guys an email, just like with some more information and also with these slides. So appreciate you guys. This was really dope. And yeah, man, you guys have a good evening.
All right, let me get everybody to get in closer. Everybody trying to come in.